In an unexpected twist, Carole Middleton has dropped a shocking bombshell on Queen Camilla that has left everyone speechless. For years, Carole has kept a low profile, but now she's breaking her silence in a major way. What did she reveal that has the royal family and the public in an uproar? You won't believe the details she spilled, and the consequences are far-reaching. This revelation is about to change everything you thought you knew about the royal family. Stay tuned for the jaw-dropping truth. Carole Middleton has always been known for her discretion and keeping a low profile. For years, she stayed largely out of the public eye, choosing to support her daughter, Kate, quietly while navigating the complex dynamics of the royal family from behind the scenes. Despite the public scrutiny that came with being the mother of a future queen, Carole remained composed and rarely gave interviews or made public statements. However, everything changed when Carole suddenly broke her silence, shocking the world with a bombshell revelation about her relationship with Queen Camilla. It was an outburst no one expected. For so long, Carole had held her frustrations in check, never allowing the behind-the-scenes tensions between her and Camilla to spill into the public domain. But something had shifted, and the years of pent-up frustration finally came to a head. What prompted Carole to speak out now? There were whispers among royal insiders that the strain had been building for months. Perhaps it was the years of being sidelined, the subtle digs, and the passive-aggressive remarks from Camilla that had finally pushed her to the edge. Or perhaps it was Carole's desire to protect her daughter, Kate, from the subtle influence Camilla had over her. Carole's statement, though measured, was no less explosive. She revealed years of unspoken tension, explaining how she had felt undermined at every turn by the queen consort. According to insiders, Carole had been increasingly frustrated by the way Camilla had tried to influence Kate, shaping her into the ideal royal wife, someone who was obedient and less independent than Carole had raised her to be. It was clear that Carole had been biting her tongue for far too long, and now she was finally ready to speak her truth. The timing of Carole's outburst was crucial. The royal family, always so polished and composed in front of the cameras, was not accustomed to such revelations from someone like Carole. For someone who had kept a low profile for so many years, this sudden outburst sent shockwaves across Buckingham Palace and royal circles. The public had always seen Carole as the supportive, loving mother who quietly stood by Kate's side, but now they saw a different side of her, a woman who had had enough and was no longer willing to silently endure the manipulation and power struggles that had been happening behind closed doors. Carole Middleton's sudden outburst was a wake-up call for the royal family. It exposed the cracks in the foundation of the monarchy that no one had seen coming. For years, Carole had played the game, smiled through the uncomfortable moments, and put her family's image first. But now, with one bold statement, she revealed that there was more beneath the surface, a hidden story of tension, control, and unspoken animosity. The monarchy, which had always been so careful about its public image, was now facing a new kind of scrutiny. And it all started with Carole Middleton breaking her silence. The relationship between Carole Middleton and Camilla, the queen consort, has always been a delicate one, but no one truly understood just how strained it was behind the scenes. On the surface, the two women seemed to get along fine, smiling for the cameras at royal events and sharing polite exchanges. However, a closer look reveals that things were far from harmonious. What appeared to be a friendly relationship between the two mothers-in-law was actually a series of subtle power plays, unspoken tensions, and competing agendas. From the very beginning, Carole Middleton found herself in a challenging position. As the mother of Kate Middleton, the future queen consort, Carole was thrust into the royal spotlight, forced to navigate the intricate world of the British monarchy. While many expected Carole to bask in the glow of her daughter's rising status, the reality was far more complicated. Carole had always been fiercely protective of her family, and as Kate's relationship with Prince William grew more serious, Carole became increasingly concerned about the influence of other members of the royal family, particularly Camilla. For her part, Camilla, now the queen consort, had spent years maneuvering her way through the royal family. She had weathered public scrutiny, controversy, and a difficult history with Princess Diana. By the time Kate and William's relationship began to blossom, Camilla had already cemented her place as Prince Charles's wife, but she wasn't completely secure in her position. She knew that as the stepmother of William and Harry, her role would always be scrutinized. The idea that someone like Kate, who came from a more modest background, could potentially be a future queen was something Camilla could not easily accept. In the early days of Kate and William's romance, things seemed promising. Camilla was warm and welcoming towards the Middleton family, extending gestures of friendliness and support. She invited Carole to gatherings and appeared to show genuine interest in her daughter's well-being. But as time went on, Carole began to sense something deeper beneath the surface. It wasn't overt, but there were signs, small, subtle remarks that made Carole uncomfortable. These weren't the kinds of comments that would cause a public scandal, but they were enough to create an undercurrent of tension. One of the first signs of trouble came when Camilla began to question Kate's suitability for royal life. To Camilla, Kate lacked the aristocratic lineage that was so highly valued in the royal family. Camilla, who was born into the upper echelons of British society, had always viewed herself as part of the royal establishment. For her, Kate's middle-class background was a stark contrast to the polished aristocratic world she inhabited. While Camilla may have been polite outwardly, her comments to others were less kind. She would make offhand remarks about Kate's upbringing, suggesting that she wasn't quite royal enough to take on such a heavy responsibility. Carole, who had worked hard to give her children a strong foundation, wasn't about to let anyone undermine her daughter. As the tensions grew, so did Carole's frustration. She was a woman who knew how to play the game. She had already navigated the world of business and social circles before her daughter's relationship with William became public. But this was a different world, one filled with history, expectations, and rules that Carole had never had to face. Despite her best efforts to stay out of the drama, Carole couldn't help but feel sidelined, disrespected, and increasingly isolated. As Kate's role in the royal family solidified, the relationship between Carole and Camilla became even more strained. Camilla, who had worked hard to establish her own position, couldn't help but feel threatened by Kate's growing popularity. Kate, after all, was the future queen, and with that came tremendous power and influence. For Carole, it became increasingly difficult to watch as Camilla tried to overshadow her daughter. It wasn't just the public gestures, it was the behind-the-scenes moves that Carole couldn't ignore. Camilla would often subtly undermine Kate, suggesting that she wasn't ready for royal duties or wasn't living up to the royal standards that had been set. In private, Carole began to notice how Camilla would subtly try to pull Kate away from her own family, pushing her to be more royal and less independent. Carole, who had raised Kate to be strong-willed and self-assured, felt that her daughter was being pushed into a mold that didn't fit her. Carole was concerned that Camilla was trying to mold Kate into something she wasn't. Someone who would conform to the royal family's rigid expectations, rather than embracing the more modern and relatable figure that Kate had become. It wasn't long before these frustrations boiled over. Carole, who had always kept a low profile, started to feel the weight of the years of passive-aggressive remarks, subtle snubs, and manipulations. She could no longer stand by silently, watching as her daughter became more and more unhappy. The tipping point came when Kate began showing visible signs of emotional fatigue. It wasn't just the demands of royal duties that were weighing on her. It was the pressure to fit into a role that wasn't hers to begin with. Carole saw the toll that Camilla's influence was taking on her daughter, and she knew she had to do something about it. Carole's decision to speak out was not made lightly. She knew that any public outburst would have major consequences, not just for her family, but for the entire royal family. But after years of biting her tongue, Carole had had enough. She finally broke her silence, revealing the truth about her strained relationship with Camilla and the subtle ways in which Camilla had tried to undermine her daughter. Carole's revelation was a bombshell, not just because of the personal nature of the conflict, but because it exposed the hidden dynamics within the royal family. For years, the public had been led to believe that everything was fine between the Middletons and the royal family. But in reality, there were deep divisions, and Camilla had played a major role in those tensions. Carole's decision to speak out not only shocked the public, but also sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace, where officials scrambled to manage the fallout from the explosive revelation. The cracks in the relationship between Carole and Camilla were more than just personal grievances. They represented a larger issue within the monarchy. The tensions between Carole and Camilla were symbolic of the larger struggle for power, influence, and control within the royal family. With Prince William poised to become king one day, the stakes were higher than ever. Carole's relationship with Camilla was just one piece of the puzzle, but it highlighted the struggles that have always simmered beneath the surface of the British monarchy. Carole Middleton's shocking public statement sent waves through the media and left Buckingham Palace scrambling to manage the fallout. Known for being discreet and for carefully maintaining her family's privacy, Carole had never before ventured into the public eye with such a bold declaration. Her usual low-profile approach had been a sharp contrast to the more public-facing roles of other royal figures, like her daughter Kate. But something had changed. The pressure and tension had built up over the years, and when Carole finally spoke out, it was a moment no one could have predicted. The statement Carole made wasn't just about her personal grievances. It went deeper. It wasn't simply a matter of expressing frustration about how she had been treated by Camilla, the queen consort, or even the royal family. It was a full-on declaration of the years of manipulation, control, and subtle insults that had been quietly bubbling beneath the surface. The world had seen the polished, flawless facade of the royal family, but Carole's words cracked that image open, revealing the tension that had existed behind closed doors. Carole's statement focused on the ongoing power struggle between her and Camilla. While the public had always seen the two women as cordial and polite at royal events, Carole's words exposed the simmering rivalry that had existed for years. She spoke openly about how Camilla had tried to manipulate situations to make her own influence felt. Carole's frustrations weren't just about feeling disrespected. They were about seeing her daughter, Kate, being subtly pressured to conform to royal expectations that weren't in line with her true nature. Carole had worked tirelessly to ensure that Kate remained grounded and true to herself. But she saw Camilla trying to reshape Kate into something more traditional, something more royal than Kate had ever intended to be. Carole admitted that she had always kept quiet, allowing the royal family to dictate the terms of their relationship. She had taken a step back because she understood that the monarchy was a unique institution, one with its own rules and customs. But over time, that silence became unbearable. The tension reached a boiling point when Carole realized that her daughter, Kate, was showing signs of emotional strain. She had been watching her daughter grow increasingly uncomfortable in royal duties, and Carole was certain that much of that discomfort was tied to the subtle influence Camilla had on Kate. Carole could no longer stand by and watch her daughter suffer in silence. In her statement, Carole revealed that she had long felt sidelined and pushed out by Camilla. While the public had never seen it, Carole felt like an outsider within her own family, treated not as the proud mother of the future queen consort but as a secondary figure. Camilla, she claimed, had worked quietly behind the scenes to make sure Carole was excluded from important family gatherings and events. There were subtle power plays, things that seemed like small gestures but added up over time. Whether it was being left out of important meetings or not being included in significant celebrations, Carole had always felt like an afterthought. One of the most shocking revelations in Carole's statement was the extent of the manipulation that had taken place. Carole claimed that Camilla's actions weren't just about personal dislikes, they were about control. According to Carole, Camilla had been actively working to mold Kate into a more passive figure, someone who wouldn't challenge the palace's authority or question the expectations of royal life. Carole had raised her daughter to be strong, independent, and confident, qualities that were sometimes seen as a threat within the palace, and Carole believed that Camilla's efforts to make Kate more royal were part of a much larger strategy to gain more control over the future of the monarchy. As Carole spoke, the room grew silent. Her words were cutting, each sentence delivered with precision. The members of the royal family, who had always maintained a united front, were now faced with a truth they couldn't ignore. Carole's statement wasn't just a personal grievance. It was a powerful declaration of the emotional and psychological toll that years of royal manipulation had taken on her family. Carole's frustration wasn't just with Camilla. It was with the entire system that had made her feel insignificant. Her statement didn't just call out Camilla. It called out the entire royal family for their complicity in what Carole described as a toxic environment. She spoke about how the palace system, with its strict adherence to tradition and hierarchy, had often marginalized her and her family. As someone who had come from a middle-class background, Carole had never fully fit into the world of aristocracy that many members of the royal family represented, and while she had always respected the institution of the monarchy, she had never truly felt accepted by it. That sense of being an outsider had become more pronounced as Kate's role in the royal family grew. Carole's words reverberated far beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace. The media quickly picked up on her statement, with headlines across the globe breaking the news. The royal family, known for its carefully crafted public image, was suddenly exposed for its internal struggles and divisions. For the first time, the public was allowed a glimpse into the behind-the-scenes drama that had always been hidden from view. The tension between Carole and Camilla wasn't just a personal issue. It was a reflection of the larger challenges that the royal family faced as they navigated the ever-changing landscape of modern monarchy. The fallout from Carole's statement was swift. Royal aides and insiders rushed to respond, trying to smooth over the situation and protect the reputation of the monarchy. but it was clear that things had shifted. Carole had broken the silence, and there was no turning back. What had once been an unspoken tension was now out in the open, and the consequences would be felt for years to come. For many, Carole's statement was a turning point in the royal narrative. It marked the moment when the carefully constructed facade of royal unity began to crack. Carole had stood up for her family and spoken her truth, and in doing so she had revealed the complexities of a royal family that was far from perfect. No longer was the monarchy just a symbol of tradition and unity. It was a family dealing with its own issues, its own betrayals, and its own conflicts. And in the end, Carole Middleton's shocking statement would go down in history as a pivotal moment in the royal family story. The broader impact of Carole Middleton's shocking statement on the royal family is still reverberating, and it's becoming clear that this moment was far from an isolated incident. The ripple effects of her words are not just about a mother speaking out against a royal power struggle. They represent a much deeper shift in the public perception of the monarchy. The carefully curated image of unity and grace that the royal family had spent decades building has been undeniably shaken. And what Carole's words revealed was the reality beneath that polished surface. A reality filled with personal struggles, power plays, and emotional tension. One of the most immediate consequences of Carole's statement was the sudden exposure of the fractured relationships within the royal family. For years, the public had seen the royals as an almost untouchable institution, one that embodied the values of tradition, unity, and public duty. The idea that there could be significant rifts between key family members, especially between a powerful figure like Queen Camilla and the mother of the future queen consort, was something that many couldn't even imagine. Carole's words tore through the public narrative, revealing a level of discord that had previously been kept behind closed doors. The tension between Carole and Camilla, which had been building for years, now became a focal point for royal observers. Carole's statement didn't just air a few grievances, it revealed a complex web of underlying issues that went beyond personal dislike or petty arguments. Carole spoke of the subtle but constant manipulation, the attempts to control her daughter Kate, and the power dynamics that played out behind the scenes. The monarchy, which had long been presented as a unified front, was now exposed as a place of internal conflict, with different factions vying for influence and control. For the royal family, this exposure was more than just an embarrassment. It was a challenge to their very foundation. The monarchy has always relied on its image of unity, with each member playing a specific role that supports the greater good of the institution. But when that image starts to crumble, as it has with Carole's public statement, the very foundation of the monarchy begins to shake. The monarchy's future is tied to its ability to adapt and evolve, and this moment forces everyone within the royal family to confront the internal divisions that have long been ignored or hidden away. Carole's statement also had a profound impact on the public perception of Queen Camilla. For many, Camilla has always been a somewhat controversial figure. Her rise to the role of queen consort, especially after her marriage to King Charles, was met with mixed reactions. While some people respected her role and the strength she showed in standing by Charles during difficult times, others still viewed her as an interloper who had broken up the beloved relationship between Charles and Princess Diana. Carole's statement only added fuel to the fire of those who have always viewed Camilla with suspicion. Her image, which had been carefully crafted over the years, now seemed more fragile than ever before. The allegations Carole made about Camilla's behavior, the manipulation, the attempts to control Kate, and the subtle power plays, created an image of Camilla as a much darker figure than the public had been led to believe. For many, this shattered the image of the elegant, poised queen consort and replaced it with a more Machiavellian portrait of a woman who had maneuvered her way to the top, using others along the way. Whether or not Carole's accusations were entirely accurate, they introduced a new narrative about Camilla that will be hard to shake. In addition to the damage to Camilla's public image, Carole's statement also had an impact on the future of the royal family, particularly when it comes to Prince William and Kate Middleton. Carole's loyalty to her daughter Kate was undeniable, and her statement was as much about protecting Kate as it was about exposing the truth behind the palace's dynamics. Kate, as the future queen consort, is constantly under pressure, and Carole had always made it her priority to shield her from the negative influences of the royal system. Now, with the royal family's internal battles laid bare, Kate's position in the monarchy seemed more precarious than ever. While Kate has always been a beloved figure in the public eye, her relationship with her royal in-laws, especially Camilla, has been the subject of much speculation. Carole's words seem to validate some of the concerns that people had about Kate's treatment within the palace. The pressure to conform to royal expectations, the constant scrutiny, and the subtle manipulations to control her behavior were all part of the larger struggle that Kate had to endure. For Carole, this was the breaking point. She couldn't stand to see her daughter being molded into something she wasn't. The moment Carole spoke out, it was as if she was taking a stand not just for herself, but for Kate's autonomy within the royal family. The broader impact of Carole's statement also lies in the way it affects the perception of the monarchy's future. For the first time in modern history, the royal family's inner workings have been laid bare for all to see. The monarchy, which has always been shrouded in mystery and intrigue, now appears to be a family in turmoil. This is not just a matter of one woman's frustration with another. It's a sign that the royal family is at a crossroads. The younger generation, led by Prince William and Kate, is increasingly seen as the future of the monarchy, and their relationship with the older generation, represented by Charles and Camilla, is under intense scrutiny. The public is now asking, what kind of monarchy will the next generation lead? Will it be one that continues to uphold tradition, or will it be a more modern, relatable institution that reflects the changing values of the British public? Carole's statement has raised these questions, and they will only become more pressing as time goes on. The rift between the older and younger generations of the royal family is no longer just speculation. It's a reality that is now being discussed openly. In the wake of Carole Middleton's shocking public statement, the royal family is left to pick up the pieces. There is no going back to the carefully crafted image of harmony and unity that they had worked so hard to build. The damage has been done, and the cracks in the monarchy's foundation are visible for all to see. How the royal family handles this situation moving forward will have a lasting impact on their reputation and their future. The monarchy is at a crossroads, and the decisions they make in the coming months and years will shape the legacy of the royal family for generations to come. What is clear, however, is that this moment in history has changed the public's perception of the royal family forever. The image of the perfect, untouchable monarchy is gone, replaced by a more human, flawed, and complex institution that will need to reckon with its own internal divisions if it hopes to survive.